In nearly 26 years, Game Freak has made numerous attempts to add some kind of gimmick to mix up the formula it's used for the main Pokemon games. Whether it's changing the type of battle, throwing out the 8-gym system, or including battle gimmicks, the games still play it safe when it comes to how they work. Now, we have something that does its best to try to make changes to both. A game with free roaming, a changed battle style, taking place in the past? Even with the fan as jaded as I am, this caught my attention. So I bought and played the recently released Pokémon Legends Arceus, and I wanted to give my 2 cents on the game. To pull back the curtain a bit, this was supposed to be a first impressions video, but I'll get into why it turned into this. I'm also aware that I'm supposed to be tackling classic Mega Man games, but this one took me by surprise, so let's look at the game. Now, I'm not going to completely dissect the story, but I did want to talk about it. It's great to experience what seems to be a mainline Pokemon game with a story that I can finally care enough about to pay attention to, for the first time since Generation 5. That is, if it didn't get repetitive in its structure. The setup is you're a kid who fell out of a space and time rift that landed into what would eventually become Sinnoh. You're immediately judged for being an outsider. But with your ability to catch Pokemon without fear and with your God Phone, you are recruited to the Galaxy Team Survey Corps. Before your trial, lightning strikes out of this rift in the sky and hits specific Pokemon that watches over different areas. The lightning makes them extremely aggressive and they start to attack humans. Each of them are watched over by a member of the Diamond or Pearl clan. These are 2 groups that believe in a deity called the Sinnoh that has the power over time or space, depending on who you ask. And while they argue back and forth on who the real deity is, they're also hesitant to accept the help of the workhorse of the Survey Corps, because the Galaxy Team is also a group of outsiders that don't affiliate with the Pearl or Diamond clan. It is funny that the group of outsiders is hesitant to the outsider. Before you can get close to the rampaging Pokemon, the Pokemon's warden will test you, usually by battling. After winning, the player can go to the rampaging Pokemon to calm them down. And then you repeat the last few sentences a couple times. Add in a little betrayal, and you have Pokemon Legends Arceus. It sounds like I'm really trying to explain in as little detail as possible, but this is the problem with it. It gets pretty repetitive at times, and you can easily guess what's going to happen next. There were times where I was speaking to a specific Pokemon's warden, and immediately thought, oh crap, I'm going to have a battle. And yeah, I had a battle. The only one that was interesting was the one at the beach where the 2 people from opposing clans had to make excuses to see each other. This is also the one that deals with the death of one of the Guardian Pokemon. So at this point, one does not exist. I'm not going to go into too much detail, I'd rather you figure that one out for yourself on how that turns out. For the most part, the idea is exactly the same, so I won't cover any more plot details because this game is still somewhat new. I want to give you an opportunity, but there is the setup for the game and a little bit of details about the game. One more thing to add is that some of the missions that you do will have side plots of their own. If you go off the beaten path and do these, you'll see what I mean. It can be interesting, shocking, or just downright funny. The main story is a step in the right direction, it just needs to take care of the repetition. If we get another Pokemon Legends game, Game Freak, if you're listening, can we get one about the Johto region? And by we, I mean me. Can I have that game? Please? Thankfully, the story wasn't the only improvement over something like Sword and Shield. The game has been given an actual visual style rather than looking like low-res crap. While not the most impressive looking game, it is a huge improvement over games like Sword and Shield and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. You won't hear too much about N64 trees. What I will say is that I did notice a lot of texture pop-in or geometry popping in from certain distances, and it's not from a far distance, sometimes it's up close. Pokemon are also affected in the distance as well. There will be some Pokemon flying, and this game does not do a great job when they get too far away, only animating at around less than 10 frames per second. Another thing to note are the frame rate drops when things get a little too busy. Now, it doesn't really affect the gameplay experience, it's just something I wanted to bring up. Finally, there was also a bit of an odd thing that happened close to the end of the main story. When you get into the different battle styles that this game introduces, you have a screen transition. However, when you use large Pokemon inside of a cave, the camera isn't where it's supposed to be. Well, we don't need a boundary break to learn about how this one works. You should go subscribe to Boundary Break. And aside from that, I'm still loving the look of this game, especially at sunrise or sunset. Looks pretty good. In the game, Pokemon return in all different shapes and sizes. You have normal-sized Pokemon, but now the game introduces Alpha Pokemon. These Pokemon are much larger than others, and a bit of a spoiler for later in the video, are much stronger. Shiny Pokemon make a return in this game as well, with some very interesting differences. That is, the rate that you can encounter these shiny Pokemon changes depending on different variables. And with a new region, it only makes sense to introduce region-exclusive Pokemon. Some of them look okay, and I'm really loving Typhlosion, but one of my personal favorites, and I'm sure a lot of other people's favorites, has got to be Growlithe, the good pup. Arcanine, on the other hand, well, he's a rock doggo now. Then there are new evolutions like Overqwil, which raises some questions. Like, did they go extinct or something? I understand Arcanine and Electrode evolving into the forms that we've known for decades, but what about Weirdeer, Kleavor, and Ursaluna? Just thought I'd bring that up. I'm reminded of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild whenever I think of the music in Pokémon Legends Arceus. There are going to be times where the game will just go silent, with the exception of sound effects. And other times you're going to get some in-game music, and it's pretty good stuff. The majority of it seems heavily inspired by Diamond and Pearl, so there were times where I would just stop and be like, okay, which theme is that one? Though it was pretty easy to figure it out. I have a lot of nostalgia with Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, so this soundtrack really grew on me. The only downside to the soundtrack is the battle theme, not because of it being good or bad or anything, it's just going to be very repetitive for how long you play the game. It's a minor nitpick, but it's worth mentioning. And something that was very weird is that the cries for Pokemon such as Pikachu have been reverted to their original cry from the first generation of Pokemon. It's kind of an odd change. Aside from that, it sounds like a Pokemon game. It gets the job done, and the music is pretty neat. Nintendo, you want to release this soundtrack as well? Pokémon Legends Arceus sort of works similar to a mainline Pokemon game, but it does take a different approach to it. Rather than going through 8 gyms and battling the Pokemon League, you'll be tasked with putting together the first Pokedex in the Hisui region, as well as taking on missions given to you by the people either in Jubilife Village or throughout the rest of the Hisui region. Pokemon encounters are actually a bit similar to Sword and Shield, where they're going to appear in front of you as opposed to being random encounters such as the ones in other traditional Pokemon games, which is great. And just like other games, Pokemon will appear in specific locations and different times of day. For instance, having water Pokemon at the beach, or having fire Pokemon at a volcano, or encountering ghost Pokemon at night. Not all of them will be easily accessible because you're going to need to evolve some of your Pokemon. I say some because this game is generous with the evolution line for most species. There are also new conditions, such as Quillfish's new evolution, which requires you using a specific move 20 times, but it also adds one convenient change as well. Pokemon that evolve by trading can still be traded, but you can also use this link item to achieve the same result, for those who don't have another player available. Throughout the game, you're going to come across larger Pokemon called Alpha Pokemon. Once you've either defeated them or captured them, they'll return after some time has passed. Another way to encounter Pokemon is through outbreaks. It's very similar to swarms in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. What happens is that a large group of Pokemon will go to a set location for a period of time. Once you catch or defeat them all, the outbreak is over. This is excellent for filling up your Pokemon's research level, or, the more interesting one, catching shiny Pokemon. Because in this game, the odds of you finding a shiny Pokemon is significantly higher than if you were to encounter one just by running around. As for your research level, this can help you go up the ranks in the Survey Corps. Each time you go past a specific threshold, you'll go up one rank, giving you access to better items, better crafting equipment, things of that nature. Long story short, stores are not the only place to get the items that you can get. Players can gather materials to make potions, Pokeballs, or any other item that they might need. It's fantastic to not have to 100% rely on somebody selling you something, but if you do need to go to a store, there is a specific side quest that you need to go through, and I really wish they made this one more obvious because I could have really used Ultra Balls at a specific time in the game. You can find materials in these Monster Hunter-like areas. While it is disappointing to not have an actual open-world Pokemon game, I think for a first attempt this makes a lot of sense. Because I think an open-world Pokemon game would give the player a little too much freedom to wander around and not really get around to finishing the game. Yes, you do get specific Pokemon to help you with traveling, whether you need to go faster, fly, climb, or search for other items. I still don't think this would be enough to completely open up the world and let players have at it. Because I know of people who have never finished Breath of the Wild just because of how massive the world is. Yes, you do get fast traveling, but that doesn't take away from the point that you could easily just wander around and never end up finishing the damn thing. Maybe if this style catches on, we could get another open-world Pokemon game on potentially more powerful hardware in a few years. Yes, there are open-world games on Nintendo Switch, but this is a Game Freak game. They are not the most optimized. For this game, being restricted to areas really helps keep it focused. Since we're on the topic of traveling, navigation, that kind of gameplay, you can use the plus button to bring up your travel companion, but it never stopped confusing me when I needed to pause the game. I think making up on the D-pad the summon button and start for items and Pokemon management would make a big difference because it seemed like a very unnecessary change. Just like the other games, you can catch or battle Pokemon. Catching them is pretty interesting. You'll have to actually aim your Pokeball and it'll get to them if you're close enough or if they're not aware of your presence. This can be done by slowly approaching them in the grass, feeding them, or confronting them. You can either battle them or stun them with mud balls or other items. A couple of these will make them dizzy, which will give you more than enough time to cycle through all of your items to catch them. I really like that it's obvious whether or not you will catch this Pokemon. If it bounces a little bit, it's a guaranteed catch. If it bounces high, there is a lower chance of actually catching that Pokemon. This can be taken care of by inflicting paralysis, burn, or frostbite to the opposing Pokemon. Another solution is to use a better Pokeball. Speaking of, there are going to be 3 styles of Pokeballs. You have the standard Pokeball, with their improved versions. Players can get a decent amount of distance with their throws with these Pokeballs. The Heavy Ball, on the other hand, won't go very far, but these are very useful whenever you catch a Pokemon from behind. And the last one is the Wing Ball. These make it so much easier to catch flying Pokemon, and they go much further than actual Pokeballs. However, if you do fail enough times to catch a Pokemon, then they're going to notice you. From there, they'll either run away, or they're going to start attacking. Different species will act differently towards the player, though I think it would have been really cool to see these different Pokemon of the same species react differently. Whether it's depending on their size, or the level, or whatever variables one could make. Aside from that, I think this works really well. You can't just rush in and throw everything to try to catch a Pokemon, because I've tried it. And you also can't really catch Pokemon that are annoyed at you. Another thing to mention is that you can't really throw Pokeballs when you're gliding, but you can do it when you're crossing water. I'm guessing aiming in midair would be more difficult, but it would have been nice to see that possible. It's not like you get these Pokeballs back. One more thing to mention is that you can use gyro controls, but I chose to not use it. I think it's a little too weird. But it is there if you want it. Pokemon battles work in a similar way depending on the conditions. One-on-one battles are exactly the same with the rock, paper, scissors formula, but now when your Pokemon levels up, they can master attacks. This means that they can utilize the Agile and Strong style. But before we get into that, I just want to mention how awesome it is that you can switch out your Pokemon's moves on the fly. So, even though you are limited to 4 attacks, you're not exactly limited to just those 4 attacks and you have to go to someone to learn some new ones or relearn them. You can swap them in and out as you please. And this reminds me of a Pokemon clone that I played on Nintendo Switch not too long ago, Nexamon. The idea is very similar. If you have more than 4 attacks, you don't just completely lose that attack and have to go to someone for it. You can actually re-equip that attack to your monster, and it works just like that in this game. Now, as for Strong Style and Agile Style allows your Pokemon to attack and potentially get more attacks in before the opponent is able to strike. Strong Style, they hit a little bit harder and will leave you vulnerable in battle, giving your opponent a few more free shots. Now, you can't really abuse these as much as you would like because these take twice the power points as a standard attack. So you'd have to exercise caution with these for multiple reasons, and that's one of them. It's really cool, but this can easily be abused. I swear the CPU gets more of these combos in than I would, so it does make encounters more difficult. Trainer battles are around despite being considered the best Pokemon catcher. There seems to be a fair amount of Pokemon trainers. One-on-one battles are around, and they're about what you think. Another thing that'll make the game a bit more difficult is the fact that when you knock out an opponent's Pokemon, once they bring in a new Pokemon, they tend to get a free hit on you, so they might just completely obliterate whatever you have. It's interesting to see how many times the game will just dish out free hits. The same applies for you when you switch Pokemon in battle, unless they're really slow. You can actually switch Pokemon and can still continue with your turn as if nothing ever happened. It's pretty cool, but I really wish there was a way to tell if switching was going to benefit you or not. You can see it when you choose either a Strong Style or Agile Style move, but when you switch Pokemon, you don't get the same thing. Now, these aren't the only battles in the game. You can also have scenarios where you battle multiple Pokemon at once, whether it's a wild encounter or a trainer battle. These are trickier to deal with because you can only get one attack in, and before you can attack again, every other Pokemon has to do something, so for the most part, they tend to attack. You might go up against Pokemon that aren't too powerful, but eventually all the damage adds up. With wild battles, if all of your Pokemon faint, you could just run away or get a little bit of distance, heal your Pokemon, and go right back into that battle. However, you can actually be knocked out in the game from taking too much damage. And once you've regained consciousness, you've noticed that you've dropped some items. One more thing to mention about the battles is just how powerful some of these Pokemon are. Like, the scaling is really off. I get that it makes it more difficult to do some mindless grinding for some weaker Pokemon, but wow, it's not something I was expecting. Even with that, Alpha Pokemon are even stronger. Seriously, their stats are insane. And it's actually pretty cool to catch one and use it on your team if you're in a sticky situation, because you can use these special items to increase their stats even more and make them absolute monsters. And speaking of monsters, this game has one more thing. The Pokemon that were struck by lightning in the story end up becoming enraged. These are the bosses in the game. The way it works is that they have to be calmed down by throwing items at them and occasionally battling them. Though you could just throw items at them the entire time and still achieve the same result. It'll just take a little longer. When you first encounter them, you have to dodge their attacks and pelt them with these bags. There will be times where these Pokemon will become vulnerable, and that's when you can battle them one-on-one. When you defeat them, it doesn't knock them out, but it will knock out a chunk of their power meter, or whatever it's called. This is the meter you need to knock out so you can calm them down. Most of these are pretty interesting. You get different arenas to be in, you have different attacks to dodge, but I will say the most annoying one is the Avalugg one. I had to restart that one a few times, and I'm not exactly proud of that, but I still think it's a pretty good challenge. So originally I wanted to talk about the first few hours of this game, but as I was playing it, it became more and more apparent of how much fun I was having with it. I had this urge to keep playing, which is crazy because I haven't been this excited for a new Pokemon release since Sun and Moon, and when it comes to the game's challenge, I haven't really been challenged this much since Pokemon Black and White. After I figured out how the battles worked, I had an easier time with the alphas and the enraged Pokemon. At this point in the video, I'm over 40 hours in, though I only recorded about 30 for this video. A little overkill, but there's a reason why. I wanted to keep showing more and more, but then I realized exactly how much I need to really hold back on because it's still somewhat new. I think this game did more than enough to feel like a breath of fresh air. I could go more in depth with it, but I think the basics and just telling you about it is more than enough to satisfy my urge to make some kind of content on this game. And I'm just going to let you know this. If you are a jaded Pokemon fan such as myself, this game is going to be worth it for you. It is going to give you a lot more to come back to than something like Sword and Shield if Sword and Shield didn't have raids. It will give you a lot more to come back to than Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because let's be honest, those are crap remakes. I do think that these games will have a limited shelf life, and that's probably around the time that players are officially done doing everything that they could possibly do in the game, but it's still more than enough to be worth your $60. Hopefully we can see more Pokemon Legends games, more games in this style. And, like I said, one of the Johto region, please. Even though I do say I would like to see more of these come out, I don't want to see them releasing like year after year. I think that would be a bad idea. And that's it for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it took a while for any kind of content to come out after the rebrand, and I guess this game was part of the reason for it, so I might as well just talk about it to justify not making the Mega Man videos right away. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, or even more in-depth reviews that will be coming soon, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon to get notifications, and right now I want to give a shout out to the channel members here on YouTube. Their names will be scrolling on screen. These are the $1 tier members. Not only that, I want to give a special shout out to the $5 tier members, who are Dork in a Hat, Tactical Discord, Martin YT Plays, Ultrasonic Hero, and Ryan Rolfs over on Patreon. If you want to support the channel in a bigger way with a monthly contribution, you can find out how to do so with the join button below this video or with the Patreon link in the description down below. That is patreon.com/GottaBeFrank. You can also find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Discord. I have TikTok. I post silly things from my streams on there. And you can also find me on twitch.tv/GottaBeFrank. Just remove the E. With that said, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and until then, take care.